Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission here, as always, is simple. We take dense, often overwhelming source material, and we really try to strip away all the filler.
To get to the core.
Exactly, to deliver the essential, actionable knowledge that you can actually use. Today, we're sort of cutting through the modern noise of, venture capital and hyper-innovation.
All the buzzwords.
All the buzzwords. And we're going to examine a surprisingly old school, yet ruthlessly effective blueprint for creating wealth from really simple concepts.
Yeah, and for this deep dive, we're looking primarily at Dan S. Kennedy's guide, How to Make Millions with Your Ideas. What makes this book so compelling, I think, is that it's not some academic business textbook.
Right, it's not theoretical.
Not at all. It's
Yeah.
really an analytical collection of real-world experiences. Kennedy distills 45 core entrepreneurial strategies from, I think, over 50 individuals who built empires, starting with, well, with not much more than a sketch or a single idea.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Our goal for today is to really analyze the foundational economic logic that's presented in this blueprint.
Man.
We're not looking for, lucky breaks or 1 in a million shots.
No, this is about the system.
Right. We're looking for the high probability, repeatable paths to massive scale. And this means we'll be focusing pretty intensely on the mechanics of proprietary products, the economic power of what he calls truly disruptive services, and that crucial shift from traditional retail to modern direct response marketing.
And the immediate critical takeaway here is just the focus on pragmatism. The wealth described in this book, it wasn't generated by inventing cold fusion or something.
No grand scientific challenge.
Exactly. It's about strategically building a business framework around an idea that might already exist or is, deceptively simple. The goal is always to maximize the profit potential of that idea while, at the same time, ruthlessly minimizing the market risk. It's a profit-first, systems-driven approach.
Which really rejects that common belief that bigger risk equals bigger reward.
It completely rejects it. That focus on minimizing risk is so different from what we hear about in modern tech culture,
It suggests that success isn't accidental, it's engineered.
It absolutely is. And that engineering, according to Kennedy, starts with where you decide to apply your resources in the first place.
So Kennedy makes this very strong, I'd almost say confrontational thesis right at the beginning. He argues that, there might be tens of thousands of ways to run a business.
There are endless ways.
But he identifies only 8 categories with the highest probability of success. And he's pretty blunt about it. If you're starting out, focusing your energy on these specific areas it's non-negotiable.
He uses a great analogy for it.
He does.
Yeah.
He says, why attempt to climb a mountain in a blizzard when you can just wait for clear weather?
And that analogy just underscores a fundamental reality, right? Money earned is still money. It doesn't matter if it comes from some revolutionary new product or from a dependable, predictable method. The value of these 8 categories is that they concentrate your resources, where the conditions, the market structure, consumer behavior, they almost guarantee a higher chance of survival and scale.
Okay, so if we want to hitch our idea to a strategy that acts like a gravity assist, what are these core templates? The book highlights 2 key models that I think completely redefine a company's value proposition.
The first one is what he calls the market-driven business. And in this model, you don't start with a product idea. You don't start in your garage tinkering. You start with a specific, highly niche market.
And that already exists.
Yes, one that already has acute, confirmed pain points. The market itself dictates the exact product or service that's required. So demand isn't just confirmed. It's often, underserved or inefficiently served. Your competition is probably weak or just complacent.
Let's dig into the mechanics of that. Can you walk us through some of the examples Kennedy gives for that market-driven approach?
Sure. Kennedy himself is a perfect example. He noticed this persistent gap in quality marketing support for professionals like chiropractors and dentists. They were great at their craft, but terrible at marketing.
So he didn't invent new chiropractic techniques.
No, of course not. He invented systems to help them market their practices more effectively. This insight led to his Success Track seminar, publishing, and consulting business. It generated millions across a whole suite of related products. The market, that highly defined niche, it explicitly signaled its need, which dramatically minimized his launch risk.
That's fascinating. You're essentially outsourcing the risk of the idea to the pre-existing demand of the niche.
Precisely. Or consider the more obscure industrial example he uses. A manufacturer who developed specialized sirens, but not for police cars or ambulances.
Right, for something much more specific.
For municipal gravel, sand, and trash carriers. They didn't invent some new siren technology. They just targeted an incredibly specific mandate-driven niche within municipal services.
And the economic implication of that is huge.
It's vital. These market-driven businesses, they completely avoid the monumental cost and time of trying to create a market or, educate a general audience. Your probability of success immediately spikes because the demand is confirmed, it's specific, and the target audience is easy to find. You can reach them through just a few trade publications.
Now, let's contrast that very specific market-first approach with the second major category, the media-driven business. Here, the focus completely shifts.
It does. It shifts from the product itself to the delivery mechanism.
The channel.
Yes, in the media-driven model, your core competency isn't the product's intrinsic value, it's mastering the distribution channel. You are, fundamentally, a customer acquisition machine.
The prime example here is the Guthy-Renker Corporation. I mean, if you look at their product history, it's all over the place. Cosmetics, engine additives, fitness videos, self-improvement courses.
It's a chaotic mix, right? They have basically no internal expertise in the chemistry of cosmetics or the mechanics of an engine. The only thing connecting all those products, the sole source of their value, was their absolute mastery of mass media channels.
Specifically, the infomercial.
The infomercial and direct response methods for selling. The entrepreneur in this model isn't a product expert. They're a master of the specific method of promotion.
So they're not really a product company at all. They're a system, a high-tech distribution system designed for speed and scale.
Correct. And that system allows them to introduce and, cycle through radically diverse products very, very quickly. The book notes that companies like this often achieve millions in profits incredibly fast, precisely because they start with that robust distribution system already in place.
So if you can master the media buying, the placement, the production,
Yeah.
the system.
You can plug almost any viable high-margin product into it and scale it almost instantly. And this drastically changes the company's valuation. You're not a niche manufacturer anymore. You're a scalable customer acquisition platform.
That flexibility is just crucial for growth and for longevity. If one product fades, the system is still there, ready for the next idea.
Exactly.
Understanding these categories lets you, as a listener, sort of retrofit or redesign your simple idea to fit one of these high-probability templates, instead of trying to force a low-probability idea into an unforgiving market.
That's exactly right. And that brings us to the next logical step.
Right.
How do you apply this high-probability framework to something utterly mundane?
It sounds like identifying the right market is step one, but what if your idea is just plumbing? I mean, how do you apply this kind of thinking to the most mundane, highly competitive service business imaginable?
And this is where we hit on a strategy that is so universally applicable, but I think often overlooked. It's about taking an ordinary, easily commoditized business plumbing, HVAC, painting, you name it, and transforming it into an extraordinary money-making machine, purely by redefining the standard of service quality and, maybe more importantly, predictability.
We've got the case study of Larry Harmon's Demar Plumbing in Clovis, California. And this story works so well because it didn't happen in Silicon Valley. It happened in a small competitive market of only 40,000 people.
It did, and the results are they speak for themselves. In 6 years, Harmon grew the company's annual revenue from $210,000 to $3.3 million.
Wow.
The operational structure he built even got him a spot on Inc. magazine's list of the 500 fastest-growing businesses.
And the most stunning detail, the one that really makes you lean in, is that he did all this despite being the most expensive service provider in his entire region.
Not a little more expensive. The most expensive.
This isn't a strategy about winning a price war. This is what Kennedy calls Strategy 45. The service over price model.
Harmon proved that consumers, especially when they're dealing with an emergency or a vital home service, they're desperate for guaranteed value and predictability. They're not looking for the lowest price. He systematically identified the two biggest complaints people have about service companies and just tackled them head on. He did this by plussing the basic plumbing model with 3 core non-negotiable service enhancements.
Okay, let's break those 3 down. They seem simple on the surface, but operationally, they must have been a nightmare to implement.
Well, the first was guaranteed same-day service. Harmon knew that the #1 source of consumer frustration was timeliness. The vague promises, the 4-hour windows, the no-shows.
Everyone has experienced that. We'll be there between noon and 5.
Right. So by providing a hard same-day guarantee, Demar instantly differentiated itself from nearly everyone else who was operating on an inefficient, customer-unfriendly schedule. Now, this required a huge investment in dispatcher and technician efficiency, but it secured customer confidence immediately.
Okay, that's number one. What's the second enhancement?
Number two, 204/7 service at no extra charge. And this is where the cost model gets really challenging. Harmon was explicit that paying employees premium overtime rates was expensive.
So how did he rationalize that? That's a huge internal cost increase.
He understood that in an emergency service business, the perceived value of solving the problem right now, regardless of the hour, generates a deep, lasting loyalty that far outweighs the cost of that overtime pay. He used the high service cost to justify his premium pricing, and customers accepted it. Why? Because the value proposition was certainty and immediate relief.
And the third change, this one feels like it fundamentally re-engineered the trust relationship between the company and the customer.
It absolutely did. The third was a guaranteed cost, or a flat rate. This moved away from that opaque, labor-by-the-hour plus parts model that customers universally distrust.
Because they're always afraid the technician is dragging their feet to run up the bill.
Exactly. So Demar provided a predictable flat-rate price quote before any work began. And crucially, if that initial estimate was wrong, if the job took longer or needed unexpected parts, the company ate the loss, not the client. This eliminated price shock, which was complaint number 2.
That transfer of risk from the customer to the company, that is the operational breakthrough. It forces management to invest heavily in their employees.
It has to.
They called them service consultants, not plumbers. They had to be highly accurate estimators and brutally efficient operators.
Absolutely. This commitment to value required a massive internal investment. His employees got extensive high-cost training. He was sending them to Dale Carnegie courses to improve their customer interaction and salesmanship.
But he paid them well.
He paid them with high commissions. Some were earning $50,000 to $60,000 a year, and this was back in the 1990s. Now that sounds like an enormous increase in overhead.
But the numbers bear out the strategy, right? How did they manage to absorb that huge internal investment?
The increased professionalism and the superior service drove a 45% revenue increase, even with labor costs rising by 21% after they implemented that commission structure. The margin was preserved and it expanded because the higher pricing was justified and customer volume and retention just soared.
And he formalized this investment.
He did. 2% of gross income was permanently reinvested into training, and 13%, a huge number, went directly to high-quality professional advertising on radio, TV, and in glossy brochures. He was professionalizing a blue-collar industry from top to bottom.
Which ties back perfectly to Strategy 15. Listen to the consumer first, critique later. Harmon just ignored his competitors who were saying his prices were excessive or his commissions were unsustainable.
He didn't care what they thought. He focused solely on solving the deep-seated emotional frustrations of his customer base. The genius is that the idea, plumbing, was totally ordinary. But the system he built around it was extraordinary, and it was focused entirely on guaranteed value delivery.
Okay, so shifting from services to physical products, the next non-negotiable lesson from the book is the absolute necessity of controlling your own product and its economics. Especially if you intend to scale dramatically through direct marketing channels. Why is proprietary control so critical?
It's purely about the margin. It's all math. If you want to scale a product business into the millions, you simply cannot rely on traditional retail distribution. In that world, standard margin structures mean you're lucky to realize maybe 30% actual profit after all the retailer fees, distribution costs, and overhead.
And that just starves you of capital.
It severely limits the capital you can reinvest into advertising, and advertising is the engine of rapid growth in this model.
So here is the core economic nugget for anyone listening who's exploring product sales through direct channels. Mail order, social media ads, infomercials. You need a massive margin to cover the high cost of customer acquisition. What's the specific multiple that Kennedy says is necessary?
You have to be able to sell the product for 7 to 9 times its wholesale cost. That translates to a 700 to 900% markup.
And let's dissect why that number is so incredibly high. It sounds almost impossible.
It does, but when you run a direct response campaign, say an ad on social media or an infomercial, you incur massive costs that people don't think about. You've got the media buy, the production, customer service to handle orders and complaints, payment processing fees, shipping, and critically returns and refunds. A 700% margin is often the bare minimum required just to break even after you factor in all those costs of acquiring a customer who might only buy from you once.
So if you're just reselling a generic product you bought wholesale,
You're dead in the water. You simply cannot afford the necessary ad spend to scale.
the pool supply store case study in the book is a perfect illustration of this required financial pivot, from commodity trading to proprietary control.
It is. This was a chain of pool supply stores that was losing money because they were operating on razor-thin retail margins. A classic example. They were buying standard branded chemicals for $4 and selling them for $7.99.
Which sounds like a decent markup.
It sounds like it, but it's low actual profit after you pay rent and staff. Their three-part proprietary strategy is what saved them. First, they created their own branded chemicals. They bought the raw product cheaply, maybe for $1, and sold it under their own label for $6.99.
Which does a few things at once.
It creates instant brand loyalty, it gives them much higher margins, and it allows them to price competitively while still hitting that 600 or 700% markup on their cost of goods.
What was the second part of the strategy?
Second, they identified high-volume, low-cost manufacturing they could do themselves. Things like proprietary patio furniture made from PVC pipes in what they called an internal garage business. They could sell a set for $129 and make $100 profit.
And third,
They secured exclusive import rights for innovative items, like Korean automated pool cleaners. That exclusivity meant they had a guaranteed 400% profit because no competitors could touch the product. They owned the channel.
so they successfully transformed their old primary products, the standard chemicals and equipment, into high-margin secondary items, all by owning the brand and the manufacturing.
The conclusion is just undeniable. The moment they switched from trading commodities to owning the brand and securing high-profit exclusivity, the business became viable and scalable. It was a completely different economic model.
Now let's compare that deliberate margin-focused strategy with the struggle of the lone inventor. The book is, well, it's a brutal read for anyone chasing that patent dream.
It's a tough truth. So many inventors believe the patent is the final hurdle. The reality, as Kennedy chronicles, is that the patent is often just the start of the financial nightmare.
Wilson Call, the architect who invented the fire-plug TV cord protector, he believed that getting the patent would lead to a bidding war for the rights to his invention. What actually happened?
He ended up spending $200,000 of his own money navigating the incredibly complex world of manufacturing, assembly, packaging, license negotiation, and distribution, all by himself. He learned the hard way that the invention itself is cheap. The system required to commercialize and market it is what costs millions.
So unless you're ready to become the marketer and the system builder yourself.
That patent can become a very expensive liability.
And we see a similar struggle with Tom Doyle's gripping solutions. He created this ergonomic endurance grip for tennis rackets and bike handles. It took him 5 years of R&D with experts. It was a genuinely superior product.
A great product. Yet his sales were nearly flat. I think it was $164,000 in sales in 1994 versus $20,000 in costs. The flaw was fatal.
What was it?
A low unit price, combined with the immensely high cost of educating the consumer about a radically new product. Traditional advertising just can't easily and cheaply convey the subtle physiological advantages of a new ergonomic grip. He was trying to push a high-concept product through low-cost media. It just didn't work.
Which reinforces strategy 23. If you must invent, start by studying the market first, then invent. And there are 3 non-negotiable criteria the market must meet before you even think about R&D.
Right. The market must be, 1, understandable. You can learn everything you need to know from public data, periodicals, and what your competitors are doing. 2, it must be tested. Others are already operating successfully nearby, which confirms the market exists and is willing to pay.
And the third one is crucial.
The third is accessible. You have to be able to advertise cheaply to a targeted niche. The example given in the book is brilliant. Targeting women who fly their own planes is infinitely cheaper and more accessible than targeting all American women, because you can reach them through 1 or 2 specialized magazines.
Let's pivot to the simple solution that solves a complex emotional problem, the story of The Club. This product just demonstrates that a low-tech idea married to a brilliant economic strategy beats high-tech invention every single time.
Jim Winter invented The Club, the simple bright red visually deterrent steering wheel lock, after his own high-tech Cadillac with an expensive alarm was stolen in 1985. His emotional response, his anger, drove his strategy.
Strategy 5. turn anger at the enemy, in this case crime and car thieves, into a massive opportunity. The security industry doesn't really sell safety, it sells peace of mind.
And strategy 4, keep it extremely simple. The club is proudly low-tech. It just relies on visual deterrence and mechanical inconvenience. It forces a thief to look at the car and choose an easier, lower-risk target next to it.
But the true economic genius, the real mechanism here, is strategy 7. That incredible, seemingly risky $500 guarantee against theft if someone is using the device. That sounds like a potential financial disaster for the company.
It does. How could they offer such a super strong claim without exposing themselves to massive financial risk?
How did they?
This is a masterclass in calculated risk analysis. The company knew a few things. They knew the device dramatically reduces theft. Not every stolen car results in a claim, and the guarantee has conditions. But the most crucial factor was the math. Their research showed that claims for theft amounted to only 1/16 of 1% of their total sales volume.
Okay, let's do the math on that to really appreciate the leverage here. If the Plime retailed for, say, $50 and you sold 100 of them, resulting in a single $500 claim, that means the $500 liability is spread across those 100 units.
Exactly. When you calculate the actual cost of upholding that guarantee across every single unit sold, it works out to be only 3 cents per unit. 3 cents. 3 cents of cost buys you this super strong, highly publicized guarantee that becomes the core of your marketing. It generates massive viral word of mouth and customer trust. It's an incredible trade-off.
That is the definition of a leveraged asset. They didn't insure the car. They insured peace of mind for 3 cents. It's a brilliant formula.
It is. The simplicity of the product is irrelevant. The brilliance is in the operational system, the guarantee that was built around it.
So we've established the need for control and the risk of inventing from scratch. Now let's look at fixing others' mistakes. Building on this idea of simplicity and market focus, the strategy of reinventing or repositioning existing failed products often proves more lucrative than original invention.
It's what Kennedy calls the plussing strategy, strategy 12. And history is just rich with products that were sound, but whose initial marketing or positioning was just dead wrong.
Give us some of the classic examples of necessary repositioning.
Well, plastic disposable cups, for instance. They were initially only sold as an expensive add-on, bundled with large water tanks. Nobody wanted them. It was only when they were separated and sold as a standalone consumer staple that they took off.
And Kleenex.
Kleenex, a huge one. Originally advertised as a makeup remover, the company's profits soared once they just paid attention and recognized the consumer habit people were using them for clearing their noses. And they repositioned the product as a disposable tissue.
The lesson is to pay attention to how people are actually using your product, not how you want them to.
Absolutely. And 7UP's history is probably the most amusing example of this.
It's unbelievable.
It was initially sold as bib label lithiated lemon lime soda for babies.
For babies.
To treat stomach ailments.
Yeah.
That failed, obviously. It only found its massive success decades later when it was brilliantly positioned against the dominant market leader with that anti-cola campaign, the Uncola, or no cola. The genius often lies not in creation, but in reframing.
The most famous modern example of this successful repositioning has to be the Thighmaster. The original product failed because it was introduced as a generic, multi-purpose trainer sold in a traditional, kind of intimidating gym context.
The product itself was solid, but the context was all wrong. To transform this generic exercise device into a household name, and they got it into roughly 1 in 25 American homes, they implemented 3 critical repositioning moves.
What was the first one?
First, a narrow product focus. They completely abandoned the multi-purpose trainer concept and narrowly repositioned it to target a single, highly desired visible result: thigh strength and toning. Simple.
Second was the psychological shift.
Right, the psychological repositioning. The original ads showed people doing vigorous, effortful exercise. The fix showed users sitting on the couch, watching TV, lounging by the pool, or chatting on the phone while using it. The implied message shifted from effort to ease. It sold convenience and comfort, not physical exertion.
And the third piece was the celebrity.
Celebrity alignment. They secured Suzanne Summers, who provided a genuine, high-commitment endorsement. She wasn't just paid to have her picture on the box. She was using it multiple times a day, giving them away live on talk shows. She became the face of the lifestyle it represented. That commitment secured the trust and visibility they needed for mass media scale.
The repositioning of the environment, from the intimidating gym to the comfortable couch, was just critical to reaching that mass market who wanted results without the perceived pain.
And the source really emphasizes that finding a fully committed spokesperson, someone who lives and breathes the product, is far more valuable than a generic A-list celebrity who just demands millions in cash up front.
Okay, now let's make a fundamental shift to services. The book argues that in the modern economy, time is the most precious commodity, often more so than money.
This insight is absolutely foundational. Consumers are increasingly time-starved. You have dual-income families, side hustles, busy schedules. People have less free time, but often more discretionary income.
So they're willing to pay a premium.
They're eager to pay a premium, sometimes any price, to save an hour, a half day, or just the headache of dealing with complexity.
And this realization paved the way for massive service-based businesses like Valpak, started by Terry LaBelle.
LaBelle started with just a $500 loan and a simple observation. Small local businesses, dry cleaners, restaurants, dentists, they all complained that traditional advertising was too complex and too expensive for their budgets.
So his idea was aggregation.
Pure aggregation. Combine all their ad circulars and coupons into one single envelope, the famous blue envelope, and mail it out in bulk. He literally started stuffing envelopes by hand in his garage.
The economic genius here wasn't the product. I mean, coupons were common. It was solving the cost and complexity problem for small businesses by creating a system of bundled distribution.
The scale he achieved was staggering. By the 1990s, Valpak was sending out 250 million envelopes a year to over 50 million addresses across the US and Canada. The service scaled nationally because it solved a localized, pain-point affordable, simple advertising for an entire segment of the economy. It became a $70 million a year business.
Which just proves that services that efficiently save time and money for others can scale nationally, even from the humblest beginnings.
And another brilliant service strategy involved using shock marketing to acquire customers cheaply. This is the story of Rory's free meals.
Right. Rory was a chef with great food, but zero sales and no capital for a big ad campaign.
He's operating on pure confidence. He believed that if someone would just try his food, they'd be a customer for life. The radical marketing advice he took was to advertise a guaranteed free meal offer in expensive, high-visibility media, like the Yellow Pages and on the radio.
That seems like an insane financial risk. Giving away your core product in high-cost advertising venues, how does that balance out economically?
It's a calculated cost of customer acquisition. It's a precursor to modern loss leader pricing. The strategy was to buy the customer with the compelling, completely risk-free offer. The high cost of the media was justified by the immediate, measurable response he got and his confident assumption of high repeat business and loyalty because of the quality of the food.
It's pure direct response thinking applied to a restaurant.
Exactly. Spend high up front to secure a proven, high lifetime value repeat buyer. He wasn't really selling food with that ad. He was buying reliable customer data and high-quality leads. The free meal offer was just the irresistible lure that overcame consumer skepticism and generated massive, measurable foot traffic.
Moving into business structure, let's explore the principle of cloning. This is about building a proprietary system that is so easily replicated that you can license it to others for profit.
Right, and the goal here is to avoid the immense legal, financial, and regulatory complexity of official franchising. You don't want to set up a McDonald's.
The system has to be simple and reproducible, a true business in a box. The U.S. Gold by the Inch case study is the perfect template for this concept.
U.S. Gold created a dead simple concept, selling gold chains by length from a small spool in a display cart. The genius was the incredibly low barrier to entry for distributors. The startup investment was sometimes as low as $399, averaging about $1,000 for initial inventory.
And the profitability was high.
High enough that distributors could earn $30 to $40 per hour and often liquidate their entire initial inventory in just a couple of busy weekends at a flea market or a craft fair.
The real breakthrough, though, wasn't just selling gold chains. It was the system they used to multiply their sales force. How do they use mass media for recruitment instead of just consumer sales?
They leveraged infomercials starting back in 1989. These were low-cost, simple productions featuring the founders and some of their successful distributors telling their stories. And crucially, the infomercials were used not just to sell the gold chains to the public, but primarily to recruit new distributors.
So they were selling the opportunity.
They were selling the opportunity as much as the product. This cloning strategy allowed them to multiply their sales force with incredible speed, eventually getting over 10,000 distributors and hitting 25 million plus in sales globally.
That sounds like a powerful combination of two different models, retail sales and business opportunity sales. And this leads us directly into Strategy 11. Creative combination of previously unconnected concepts leads to breakthroughs. Tell us about Gary Heiser and his company, Personal Wealth Systems.
Heiser's innovation was synthesizing two established systems into one much more stable model. On one hand, you had traditional multi-level marketing, or MLM, which sold consumable products like supplements and cosmetics. The big problem there was always high churn. Distributors would quit quickly because constant sales are difficult.
And the other system.
On the other hand, you had associations and clubs that sold fixed monthly memberships, offering services, travel discounts, medical and dental benefits, things like that.
So Heiser just combined the two. He created an MLM that focused not just on selling consumable products, but on selling a fixed monthly membership for a suite of financial and service benefits.
And this combination created an immense economic advantage: stability. In a traditional MLM, distributor turnover is the biggest killer. It's a constant, expensive problem. By focusing on a membership where monthly fees for access to services were fixed and automatically charged to the distributor's credit card, PWS drastically stabilized its revenue base.
Because the distributors stayed active to keep their benefits.
Exactly. They needed the low-interest loans or the dental plan, not just the fluctuating product commissions. This stability just slashed the crippling costs associated with high churn.
Heiser also took a very unusual, disciplined approach to growth. This is strategy 18. Prioritize quality and stability over frantic growth.
Yes, he consciously restrained the company's growth rate for 9 years. He had watched competitors collapse because their rapid, uncontrolled expansion led to inventory bottlenecks, complex logistics, inaccurate bonus checks, and just a general loss of quality control.
So he saw that as a trap.
He saw it as a trap. Heiser believed this deliberate slow growth was a necessary investment in the company's long-term operational integrity and its survival. It allowed him to maintain tight control. His stated ambition, which is Strategy 27, was to become the Sam Walton of network marketing. He wanted a sustainable legacy, not a quick, fragile IPO.
It's a critical lesson. In a business that relies on systems, like an MLM or a franchise, unconstrained growth often masks structural flaws that can end up killing the company. Controlled, deliberate growth ensures the system can scale reliably. Let's move to the ultimate high-speed scaling mechanism: electronic marketing. Specifically, the direct response channels that really exploded in the mid-1980s. This market was fundamentally changed by deregulation.
It was. The change was directly catalyzed by that 1984 FCC decision, pushed by the Reagan administration, which removed the limits on how long an advertisement could be.
And that regulatory shift instantly created the 30-minute infomercial format we all know.
The early days were absolutely the Wild West. Kennedy calls it the snake oil era. Early infomercials, like the one selling Paul Simon's real estate course, were crude and cheap. They might cost less than $80,000 to produce. Yet, a single weekend of airtime could pull in $1 million in sales.
And why were the margins so astronomical?
Because cable networks were desperate to fill those overnight remnant slots. They were selling airtime for dirt cheap. There was almost no competition.
But that model was unsustainable. It was eventually forced to mature by rising airtime costs and scrutiny from government agencies like the FDA and the FTC.
Right. The economics shifted dramatically, and the risk increased exponentially. The new economics demand a very high risk tolerance. Production costs now can range from $8,000 up to $250,000 or more for a single show. And that's before you spend tens of thousands just on the initial testing.
And the risk-reward ratio is stark.
It is. Only about 1 out of every 16 tested ads actually makes money. The other 15 are failures that get written off as tax expenses. This incredibly high failure rate requires deep pockets and high operational efficiency.
So if the failure rate is that high, how do smart, established companies like Guthy-Renker justify the massive upfront investment? The initial profit can't be the driver.
It's not. The role of the infomercial completely changed. Its primary function is no longer to generate instant profit. It is now a highly leveraged mechanism for customer acquisition. The profit doesn't come from the first sale made by the infomercial. It comes from the secondary sales.
The back end.
The back end. The ongoing revenue from catalogs, direct mail, and telemarketing aimed at the valuable customer database you acquired through that initial low-profit response. The goal is to acquire a consumer base of 100,000 to 500,000 people, quickly and cheaply, using the infomercial as a giant lead magnet.
This ties directly into Strategy 32. Guthy-Renker's vertical integration model. They're not just selling a product, they're building an entire ecosystem around a customer base.
Once they'd established the infomercial format, they realized the power of building vertical businesses around key personalities. They created entire expanding product lines around people like motivational guru Tony Robbins with personal power and the celebrity Victoria Principal with her Principal Secret skincare line.
And the customers trust the personality.
They trust and stay loyal to the personality, not just the single product. And the financial implication is that this loyalty allows Guthy-Renker to sell an ever-expanding line of products, over 40 items for Victoria Principal, and create highly stable recurring revenue through things like monthly subscription clubs for motivation programs. They leverage charisma and trust to monetize that acquired customer base repeatedly year after year.
However, none of this works if you're paying list price for your advertising space. This brings us to Strategy 40, the power of media buying. This is arguably the biggest secret that separates the direct marketing millionaires from average advertisers.
It really is. Most traditional brand advertisers pay close to the rate card price, maybe with a slight 15 or 20% discount. But the book indicates that direct marketing professionals demand and get much, much greater discounts.
Why? Why do media outlets grant them this unique financial leverage?
Because direct marketers are tracking their results with brutal efficiency. Unlike a brand advertiser who might track vague things like impressions or awareness, direct marketers track sales down to the penny for every ad they place. They know exactly what an ad in publication A is worth versus publication B.
They know their acceptable cost per acquisition.
Exactly, their CPA. And they can confidently state their absolute maximum acceptable price for an ad spot based on actual verified results. They treat ad space like a commodity, not some premium service.
So they're negotiating from a position of power.
A huge position of power. They demand 50 to 70% discounts off the rate card and often get up to 80% off by buying remnant space in bulk, the unsold last-minute inventory, or by arranging performance-based deals. They can negotiate ruthlessly because they know their verified ROI. And this principle is just as true today in digital marketing.
We see this focus on efficiency extending even to traditional mail marketing, where the expensive, glossy catalog is often mistakenly seen as the end goal.
Yeah, Gary Gelbart, the direct marketing legend, learned this painful lesson. He invested heavily in a beautiful, expensive catalog for his genealogy products, and it performed terribly.
But when he dug into the data,
He realized that nearly all his sales came from just 3 out of 70 items in that catalog, specifically decorative wall plates. So instead of pouring more money into the catalog, he scrapped it. And he sent out a single, cheap, highly targeted letter featuring only the top-selling product. That streamlined, focused approach yielded millions.
so the critical takeaway for you, the listener, is that catalogs should primarily be viewed as information-gathering tools.
That's it. You use the initial costly run to quickly identify your 3 to 5 best-selling items. Then you shift to cheaper, targeted direct mailings or focused digital campaigns, maximizing your profit by selling only the proven winners. The list is the gold, and the catalog is just the tool you use to refine that list.
Finally, let's look at the ultimate shortcut to a captive, motivated, ready-to-buy audience, the home shopping channels like QVC and HSN.
These channels aggregate these massive, highly engaged audiences, often over 10 million viewers, who are literally sitting there with their credit cards in hand, just looking for an excuse to purchase something. This creates an unparalleled opportunity to do millions in sales in a matter of days or even hours.
But the channels are notoriously selective. How did Mark Kress succeed with Joan Rivers' jewelry line when so many others failed to even get on the air?
Kress implemented a strategy of reverse engineering. Most entrepreneurs, they start with a product and then try to find a venue for it. Kress started with the end goal, the channel, and the celebrity. He secured Joan Rivers, who was known for fashion and glamour, and then he built the entire product line of affordable, high-quality classic jewelry specifically to fit her image and the unique requirements of the shopping channel medium.
So he needed something with high value, high display potential, and a compelling story.
Exactly. This perfect alignment of product, personality, and platform provided the necessary, rapid breakthrough he needed.
That was an incredibly intensive look into the systems that truly build massive wealth. It really shows that simple ideas are often the most scalable, but only if the framework is right.
We've covered a vast range of strategies, but the entrepreneurial blueprint really distills down to 4 core non-negotiable formulas that come directly from these million-dollar successes.
Let's recap them.
First, product control is power. You have to aim for those 700 to 900% markups by owning your brand, your manufacturing, or your distribution rights. Without that control, you're just commodity trading, and you can't afford the advertising you need to scale quickly.
Second.
Second, sell value, not price. Take any ordinary frustrating service business and inject layers of guaranteed value and superior performance. As the Demar model proved, customers will happily pay a premium to solve their fundamental pain points.
Third, it's about the market.
Third, prioritize the market over the invention. Follow strategy 23. Research the market first. Is it accessible, tested, and understandable? Only then should you commit to inventing a complex solution for it.
And fourth, you don't have to be original.
Fourth, harness the power of plussing. You rarely need a brand new idea. Take a proven existing idea and make it incrementally but strategically better or smarter. Often, it's just by changing the context or the message like they did with the ThighMaster redesign.
I think the most crucial non-monetary asset that's highlighted here is captured in Strategy 9, which is just attention. Bill Guthy didn't invent anything new at first. He just paid close attention to how his customers were making money from his audio cassette duplication service.
Right. He realized he was focused on the low-margin production end when the high-margin selling end was booming right under his nose.
And that careful attention led him to pivot and partner with Renker and to build a multi-million-dollar vertical marketing empire just from paying attention.
And that attention opens the door to Strategy 11, looking for those creative combinations. Heiser combined MLM products with membership services to solve the churn problem. That ability to see two successful but disconnected systems and merge them into something new and more stable, that is often a far safer bet than trying to invent a truly novel product from scratch.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I think in this complex world that's saturated with high tech and high capital, the most powerful strategy often remains deceptively simple, low tech, and emotionally focused.
Ask yourself this provocative question. What low-tech, simple, guaranteed solution can you offer today to solve a deep-seated customer emotion? Was it the anger and fear solved by the C-Club? Or was it the time scarcity solved by Valpak? The original idea is often cheap and easily copied. The fortune is in the elegant, strategically built system that's designed to maximize value and extract the highest possible margin.
Fantastic. Now that you have this powerful playbook, you can take the ideas you already have, maybe the ones everybody else is ignoring, and apply a high probability framework to turn them into unstoppable money machines by focusing on systems, not just concepts.
Now that you have the playbook, it really is time to assess which of your current ideas can be fit into one of these 8 highest probability paths. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.